Hey everybody, it's Lindsay and I'm here today to share with you some watercolor with distress markers. Now I've done distress marker watercoloring before, however this time I'm going to bring it directly to the paper and you'll see how I do that in just a minute. But first thing, I need to go ahead and get my scene stamped out here. So I'm using this brand new 2 Paper Diva stamp set and it is called Sending a Little Note. Now I've got a piece of 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch white cardstock here, or actually, excuse me, this is watercolor paper, and I'm just using my Simon Says Stamp black ink to stamp down a scene. So I've got this little mailbox from the stamp set lined up on the right hand side, and I did double stamp it because watercolor paper is textured. I don't always get a great first impression, so I like to double stamp just to get it nice and dark and crisp. So I have these masks already cut out and I will go ahead and mask off this little mailbox, and then I'm going to move my stamp over to the left and stamp another mailbox and make it appear as if it is behind this other mailbox. So just to the left of it, I guess, kind of like you see on a country road. That's the look I was going for. So I'll go ahead and move that over, close the lid to my MISTI and pick up that stamp, and then I will also double stamp this down, again using that same ink. And I am using this ink because it is waterproof and it's going to work with my watercoloring without smearing. I went ahead and removed that mask because I don't need it anymore at all. So there you can see that those mailboxes looks like they're right side by side, nice and lined up on my cardstock, ready to go. There's also this little bird in this stamp set, and I'm just going to double stamp him down in the upper left hand corner, and I'm also masking him off. Now I didn't need to do this, I thought I would, but I went ahead and I'm using this little letter that he carries in his beak, and I will stamp it down. Again, I'm using the same ink I used before, but when I stamped this down, I didn't have it lined up just perfectly. So it doesn't look like he's carrying this. There's just a very small section there, but it bugged me. So I'm just bringing in my micron pen and I'm gonna make his beak a little bit longer so it actually looks like he's holding that letter in there, and that will finish off the scene, or that part of the scene. But I need a horizon line, so I'm just taking this die. This is from Mama Elephant. It's the Landscape Trio dies, and I'm using it as a stencil, and I'm using my micron pen just to draw in a little hillside border there, just to get a nice horizon line and a grounding for these mailboxes. Now I'm bringing in some distress markers now, and I'm going to be using the brush tip for all of my watercoloring. There is also a fine tip for those fine details you want to get into. I tend to like the brush tip better. It puts down more color, it saturates it more, and it just gives me a more intense color, and I really like that. So I'm going to go ahead and color both of these mailboxes gray. I'm just doing this first one here, and I'm also going to put some brown with Vintage Photo on the posts that hold the mailboxes in the ground. Now I did have to stop my video for the day and my daughter woke up from her nap, so I started on this card the next day, so you'll see my supplies are moved around. But I'm just going to go ahead and continue to color in and really just get this first layer of color down. I went ahead and did both posts. I'm doing just a very teeny tiny touch of gray on that white envelope to give it a little bit of depth. I did red for the little flags and the flaps on the mailbox, yellow for the bird, and then 2 different colors of green for the grass. Now this is the kind of the trick that I came up with. Once you get that first layer of color down, what you want to do is come back in with the distress markers. You could use your fine point at this point if it works better for you. I'm still using the brush, and I'm just coming in the places it would be the darkest, and I'm filling those in. And then with very little water, I'm blending those out. So you still have some nice stroke marks and some nice depth. Now to make this image really pop off the cardstock, I'm taking this tumbled glass marker and I am completely outlining all of my images in this scene. So my mailboxes, I'm putting a little bit down at the bottom towards the grass, and then I will also come in and outline the bird as well. Now I am being fairly generous with this marker here because I'm going to blend this out very well with a lot of water. But you really want to put down a nice thick layer of this color. And you can always come in and add more, but I just find if you put a lot down the first time, it tends to look better and you don't get a harsh line with your watercolor. It leaves a nice soft edge. And I'm coming in now with a much bigger brush than I used before and a lot of water here, and I am just going to blend this out. Now, because I let this marker sit just for a little bit on this paper, it did bleed in just a teeny tiny bit, but that's okay, that's what I wanted. So it just leaves a nice little outline around those images and really helps them pop off the watercolor paper, and it's not so stark white. Now, I'm not going to completely the edge. I'm leaving a little bit of border around this, and I will trim this panel down later. But I did want to leave a nice little border around this. I didn't want this completely covered with watercolor. I wanted a contrast so you could tell where the scene began and where it ended. So I will just keep blending this out, and at this point you do want to make sure all of your other images that you've watercolored are dry, because you're saturating all of this around them. They will bleed if they are wet. My little flags on my mailboxes did a little bit. It's not a big deal, you can't really tell, but you do want to make sure they're nice and dry. And then I brought in my heat tool, and I am just going to heat this thing up until it's nice and dry. You could always let this air dry, but I had already spent 2 days on this card. I was ready to get it done. So I brought in my heat tool, and then you can just bend it back into shape if you want to. Now, it's my style to keep my cards nice and clean and simple, so that's what I did on this card as well. I cut down about 1/2 inch from each of the sides, or 1/4 inch from each of the sides, so about 1/2 inch all the way around. And then I am placing this on a piece of black cardstock that is just about 1/4 inch wider on each side. And then I'm going to go ahead and on that black cardstock I put some fun foam with the double-sided adhesive. And a little trick I found, if you're having trouble peeling off that backing paper, give it a good press with your bone folder and then come in, and that backing paper just peels right away. Now I went ahead and I'm going to mount this right onto an A2 top folding red card base, just for a little something different. And to add some shine, I'm adding 5 sequins. These are the Moonshine sequins from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm just using the 2 smallest sizes here. I'm using 2 of the medium and 3 of the very smaller ones, and I'm using my Quick Sticks tool and glossy accents to hold these down. I did try a different glue for sequins, but this is the one that I just keep going back to. It's my favorite, it holds them, and I don't worry about them when they go through the mail. So another little thing that I learned, if your glossy accent squirts out, you can use that little pick on the Quick Sticks tool just to roll up some of that glue that squirted out. So that's a little tip. Now this comes with this stamp set comes with a very long sentiment, and I wanted to put it on the inside of my card. I went ahead and tested it since this is the first time I stamped it, and when I was happy with the coverage I was getting, I stamped it right on the inside of the card, and that finished it off for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you'll pull out your distress markers and do some straight to cardstock watercoloring with them. As always, I will leave you guys with just a few pictures. For more information and the supply list, you can head to my blog, craftingwhilecaffeinated.wordpress.com. The link is in the description box below, as well as that eye in the top right hand corner. That will get you there too. Thank you guys so much for watching today, and happy crafting!